Shauna Sadecki is a character who has a complicated body count, and no, we're not talking about the victims she has dismembered. Well, that's not necessarily true either. Her love life has been a wild ride since she was a young woman when she was having an affair with her best friend's boyfriend, Jeff. In season 3 of Yellowjackets, viewers learned of an even deeper layer to that love triangle when Travis tells Shauna that he hears Jackie's thoughts and her memories of their sleepover makeouts, jealousy, and betrayal. So, from a young age, Shauna was experimenting with her female best friend with kissing and possibly more, as young girls are known to do. As the series progresses, we learn more and more about Shauna's romantic life through her relationships with Jeff, Adam, and Melissa, which offer far more insight to who she is and the secrets she keeps hidden. This has led to some interesting debates online about Shauna's sexual orientation and whether she is straight, gay, or bisexual. And there are arguments for each when taking an objective look at the question. Sexual orientation has to do with who a person is or is not attracted to, either sexually or romantically. There are many ways of identifying sexually, and a person may identify with more than one sexuality at different points in their life. So today, we'll be discussing this idea surrounding Shauna's character. We will be talking about sensitive topics, so please bear in mind this is a nuanced conversation around a fictional cannibal. This discussion is for fun and not meant to offend anyone. But before we jump into it, if you love Yellowjackets as much as I do, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Now, let's get into it.
If you come inside me, I will raise the baby out of spite and train it to become a killing machine that eventually hunts you down. Got it?
In season 1, Shauna is presented as a typical wife and mother, cooking and gardening and caring for her family. However, viewers quickly learn that she carries some dark secrets, which she keeps hidden deep in her bedroom closet. Shauna is married to Jeff Sadecki, who was her best friend Jackie's boyfriend prior to the plane crash, but Shauna was secretly carrying on an affair with. More on that later. Shauna seems very unfulfilled in her marriage. Her very first scene in the series shows her masturbating in her daughter's bed as she stares at photos of her daughter's boyfriend. Jeff works late, even overnight, at his furniture store, leaving Shauna and their daughter Callie alone quite often, and as Callie gets older, she goes out more and more with her own friends, so Shauna is very lonely, but also quite bored. Shauna and Jeff go to couples therapy together, but Shauna resists opening up about her feelings and memories. The therapist recommends sharing a sexual fantasy with one another, and while Jeff eagerly agrees, Shauna immediately refuses, which seems like an important detail. Shauna has a difficult time speaking up about her true feelings when it comes to her carnal desires, and we see this in both the teen and adult timeline. When she gets into a fender bender with an attractive man, something in Shauna awakens. This occurs around the same time as a nuisance rabbit from the garden catches her wrath, leading her to butcher the animal in the family kitchen and serve it in a chili to her family. That night, Shauna aggressively seduces Jeff, and they sleep together. But afterward, as Jeff takes a shower, he gets a text which Shauna reads from a woman named Bianca, sending him plans to meet her at a hotel the next day. Shauna is triggered to investigate this, finding Jeff meeting another woman there, but she also runs into Adam at the hotel, and they end up getting a room and sleeping together. Shauna believed that Jeff was having an affair with Bianca, and she was quick to get even without putting much forethought into it. Shauna's affair with Adam sends her spiraling into the past. She claims she is reliving her youth and tells him that she had married young and never really got those experiences of underage drinking and jumping off bridges. She and Adam go to a Halloween rave together, where she runs into her daughter Callie wearing Jackie's old Yellowjackets soccer uniform. Callie appears as a sort of ghostly apparition, and she's high on ecstasy, and Shauna quickly decides to get her out of there, but not before Callie briefly encounters Adam and realizes her mother has a boyfriend. Callie tries to research Adam online, but cannot find anything about him at all. No social media, no website of his artwork, and no background history. When Shauna tries contacting the art school he claims to have gone to, they had no record of him there. Shauna and the other Yellowjackets are simultaneously dealing with a blackmail scheme being led by Jeff, unbeknownst to Shauna, out of desperation to save his furniture business. As her affair with Adam gets more and more intense, She becomes suspicious of his secretive past and begins to wonder if he might be the blackmailer. When she finds a book about the Yellowjackets in his apartment, she loses control and stabs him, her inner butcher taking over. Shauna's relationship with Adam was very physical and intense. In a cutscene from episode 107, Shauna and Adam experiment with bondage, and she ties his hands to a headboard and chokes him, but Jackie suddenly appears to her in a vision. Distracted by the apparition, she nearly kills Adam before snapping out of it. On another occasion, she texts Adam, directing him to take his clothes off and lay face down on the floor, while making no promise to go over there. These behaviors indicate that Shauna enjoys exploring dominance and submission, a subset of BDSM. Unfortunately, when it comes to Adam, it goes a step too far when he tries to learn more about her history and experiences in the wilderness. Just like when the therapist recommends opening up and sharing, Shauna shuts Adam down when he starts to pry more and more into her private life. Shauna also enjoys dominating Jeff, even back in their teenage romance. Shauna basically threatens Jeff as they hook up, and later in the adult timeline, we see Shauna aggressively seduce Jeff after killing the rabbit. However, when Shauna and Jeff find Adam's art studio in season 2, which has paintings of Shauna plastered all over the walls, Shauna submits to Jeff and they have sex right there on Adam's painting table. The act of submission to Jeff in this circumstance seems significant to Shauna's character because it's kind of an act of contrition for her affair with Adam. Shauna had also recently learned that Jeff had read her journals, which means he very likely learned something new about Shauna's sexual nature. We can imagine there were mentions of her feelings for Jackie as well as for Melissa somewhere in those old diaries. So Shauna's submission to Jeff takes on an additional meaning when we consider what he knows about her history. We shouldn't forget that Shauna has been loyal to Jeff since being rescued from the wilderness, and the two married each other shortly after, according to their marriage announcement. Shauna seemingly put the past behind her, and the path forward has been that of a dedicated wife and mother. That is, until everything hits the fan 25 years later, and Shauna's relationship with Adam sends everyone in her life into a tailspin.
Everyone's afraid of you, you know? I'm not. Don't tell anybody else. I will fucking tell you.
We learned a lot about Shauna in season 3. She truly stepped into herself and became the person she believes she was meant to be. We saw a much different side to her after feeling like she lived in Jackie's shadow throughout season 1 and the grief and trauma of everything that happened with her baby in season 2. Shauna transformed into a force to be reckoned with in season 3, and this includes being far more honest about how she feels and what she wants. Right from the gate, Shauna reflects upon her relationship and loss of Jackie and how profound it has been for her. She is angry and lashes out at anyone who crosses her path. However, Melissa sees Shauna for all that she has endured and came out stronger on the other side of. Melissa is attracted to the raw fury and power that Shauna exudes, and she shoots her shot when she gets her chance, which leads to the two of them making out at knife point. Melissa empowers Shauna to embrace that part of herself and let it guide her to who she's truly meant to be. Boy, I do wonder if she regrets that by the end of the season, when they all fall under the reign of dictator shipmen. Shauna's feelings for Jackie were obvious prior to the plane crash for those with eyes to see it. Though Jackie had been dating Jeff since freshman year, we learned from Travis that Jackie and Shauna were having their own kind of fun at their sleepovers. And if you're a sick person, like many of us in the fandom, there is an argument for the idea that Shauna might have been partaking in some light necrophilia in the meat shed before Jackie's body was cremated. The loss of Jackie was profound for Shauna, and combined with the fact that she was pregnant and going through an extremely stressful and traumatizing survival experience, had detrimental effects on her. Though I'm not a psychologist, it seems like her violence and lashing out was an attempt to take control over something in a powerless situation and to protect herself from anything else hurting her. Melissa was reminiscent of Jackie in many ways, if for nothing more than to have a companion out there when Shauna had been so alone. She shows Shauna some much-needed sympathy about the loss of her baby in a way that none of the other Yellowjackets offered. Melissa did call out the way that Jackie had treated Shauna and made her feel less important than she deserved, and so did Jeff, for that matter. That's one great thing about Melissa. She is unafraid to speak her mind, even if it risks offending Shauna. Melissa was easily influenced by Shauna's domineering attitude and was quick to become her biggest advocate no matter the circumstance, even bullying others to go along with Shauna's leadership. She was jumped in as Shauna's girlfriend when she agreed to mutilate Coach Ben, something Shauna took grotesque pleasure in witnessing. After that, Shauna and Melissa came out as a couple to the rest of the group, and they went back to Shauna's hut together while Coach screamed in agony in the background. Pretty twisted, but as we've established, Shauna's into some pretty kinky stuff, and here we see her cross into sadomasochism, where she seems to find pleasure in inflicting pain and humiliation while gaining sexual gratification from the act. Even as Shauna and Melissa's relationship progresses, Shauna still finds herself dreaming of Jackie or experiencing apparitions of her as a warning of bad things to come. She sees moths as she and Melissa make up from an argument, a scene that seems to be a foil to her argument with Jackie in season 1 when she left the cabin. The death's head moths are a foil to Jackie's love for monarch butterflies and reflects Shauna's darker nature in comparison to Jackie. She's the moon to Jackie's sun. Shauna has also embraced a more masculine aspect of herself in connection to her inner dominant nature coming forth. She leads by force and by aggression, and she considers herself to be a warrior. She is the butcher for the group, cutting up meat and providing the group with sustenance. She embraces the title of Antler Queen, while antlers are grown only by male deer, or stags. It is interesting that Shauna uses male energy to ascend to leadership, muscling her way to the top. This happens as she simultaneously embraces her desire for women through her relationship with Melissa, but it also bleeds into her relationship with her in a very toxic way. She becomes verbally and physically abusive to Melissa just to see how far she can take it, just because she can. During Mari's hunt, Melissa has a chance to kill Shauna and end her tyranny, but she cannot bring herself to finish the job. In the end, she submits to Shauna as the Antler Queen and participates in adorning her in her wilderness regalia. In the adult timeline, Shauna confronts Melissa about the tape that she had sent to the Sadecki household, which was a recording from Hannah out in the wilderness the night Edwin was killed. While Melissa plays innocent and like she was just trying to get rid of evidence, we have to wonder if she wanted to get in on the game that she knew the others were playing. Clearly, Melissa has been keeping tabs on the other Yellowjackets survivors despite faking her own death years prior, but that's kind of the nature of her relationship with Shauna. She had no good reason to stick her neck out and send that tape to Shauna while expecting no recourse or not for all roads to lead back to Alex, her wife, which is odd enough in and of itself because Melissa Kelly is just kind of leading this double life, and it's almost like she wanted to show it off to Shauna, like, look how far I was able to take this. Like, to be clear, Melissa is just as fucked up as the rest of the group, with all of their individual vices, which ultimately brought them all back together. Shauna even asked Melissa if she was still in love with her, to which Melissa just laughed, but I don't know. She clearly has some level of devotion or some pull toward Shauna that she cannot overcome, even after successfully faking her own death. She even drops backhanded insults at Shauna, suggesting her marriage was out of survivor's guilt. In the wilderness, Shauna was mentally at war, and rescue was a concession. She had to tame her inner wildness in order to survive back in the real world, an inversion of survival out in the wilderness. If the wilderness provided her with the freedom to feel like she could be an openly gay woman, she certainly left that part of herself out there when they were rescued. We have to wonder about the circumstances which led Shauna from her relationship with Melissa to marrying Jeff so soon after they were rescued and returned home. Shauna does not like to open up about her experiences, whether it be Jackie's death or the babies, or any of the other things they had to endure. This may include her sexual exploration because those feelings are so connected to Jackie. Shauna doesn't differentiate, and that might be why she compartmentalized everything that happened out there into her own black box, never to be opened or revisited. That black box happens to be the safe where she keeps her journals and secrets hidden deep in her bedroom closet.
And sure, I get it. Jackie kind of treated you like shit. Jeff acted like you were a dirty secret, and you totally left them.
Now, as we've established, Shauna has had relationships with both men and women. Even the origins of her relationship with Jeff are muddied with her obvious feelings for Jackie, mixed up with lies and betrayal. Jackie and Shauna had their own friendship dynamic, which included exploration between best friends, something not uncommon for girls. However, Shauna pursued a relationship with Jeff on the side and even took it a step further by sleeping with him, something Jackie had not yet done, despite dating him for several years. So, Shauna's relationship with Jeff was laced with desire for Jackie, but also one-upping her and balancing the scales of their relationship, in which Shauna always felt Jackie was the dominant party. We see another example of this during Doomcoming when Jackie loses her virginity to Travis. Once the group of girls swarm around Jackie and see the blood stain on her dress, Shauna grabs Travis and begins kissing him. So clearly Shauna has some feeling of shared entitlement when it comes to the men Jackie is intimate with. Some have made the argument that Shauna envisions or fantasizes about Jackie when she's with her lovers, Adam and Melissa, and that's true. She sees Jackie when she and Adam jump off the bridge and at the rave. She dreams of Jackie and the moths and sees moths when she and Melissa argue. Melissa is somewhat of a foil of Jackie, a blonde stand-in as Shauna's companion. So her mind always goes back to Jackie, her one true love. The manner of her death adds to the tragedy that lives rent-free in Shauna's memory. Interestingly, Shauna doesn't experience visions of Jackie when she's with Jeff, which seems worth pointing out. Shauna may be with Jeff because he's the closest she can get to Jackie through another person and finds that to be comforting. She even tells Jeff she imagines him kissing someone else and it turns her on, but who's the only other person Shauna has witnessed kissing Jeff? Jackie. Interestingly, Adam and Melissa share many similar qualities with one another, at least in relation to their dynamic with Shauna. Shauna is the dominant party in both of these relationships, and she exercises her authority with pleasure. With Adam, Shauna initially resisted her feelings by dismissing him, but gave way for domination, which ultimately went too far, leading to a slippery slope toward chaos, a place where Shauna thrives. With Melissa, she became controlling and disrespectful, and ultimately became physically abusive when she shoots her with a gun. Their physical abuse escalated from there, and as an adult, Melissa tells Shauna that she was terrified of her when they got back. We can understand why when she bites Melissa's arm and forces her to eat her own flesh. It's difficult to say whether Shauna prefers men or women. Shauna's sexual willingness leads to destruction, which is why she resists that side of herself. She has seen some major consequences when it comes to her own promiscuity, and she fears what it could unleash by opening up that side of herself.
You won't be going anywhere.
You don't have to enjoy it this much.
And you don't have to act like such a fucking saint.
Now, we have discussed several of Shauna's more extreme sexual behaviors. Many of these fall under the umbrella term of paraphilia. A paraphilia is an experience of recurring or intense sexual arousal to atypical objects, places, situations, fantasies, behaviors, or individuals that deviate from the desires and sexual behaviors that are considered to be socially acceptable. It has also been defined as a sexual interest in anything other than a legally consenting human partner. Examples of these paraphilias would include fetishism, sexual masochism and sadism, and more. To date, there is no broad scientific consensus for definitive boundaries between what are considered unconventional sexual interests, kinks, fetishes, and paraphilias. As such, these terms are often used loosely and interchangeably, especially in common parlance. Sadomasochism is a subset of BDSM, a variety of erotic practices including bondage, discipline, dominance, and submission. Sadomasochism is not diagnosed as a paraphilia unless such practices lead to clinically significant distress or impairment for the individual. Sadomasochism performed within the context of mutual and informed consent is distinguished from non-consensual acts of sexual violence or aggression. With sexual sadism disorder, the individual often continues to inflict harm regardless of compliance of the victim, which sometimes escalates not only to the death of the victim, but also to the mutilation of their body. In the teen timeline, Shauna forces Melissa to cut Coach Ben's Achilles tendon, and she was aroused by both the coercion and the violence. Their relationship began at knife point, so I guess we couldn't expect anything less. As an adult, Shauna pushed the boundaries with Adam in that cut scene where she nearly asphyxiates him, but also in their final confrontation when she actually kills him, and how his corpse is dismembered in the aftermath. And again when she bites Melissa and forces her to eat her own flesh. Jeff even has a nightmare of Shauna's scissor hands, so even he subconsciously fears her thirst for violence. When reviewing the DSM-5 list of paraphilias, Shauna is guilty of many of these behaviors. To explore just a few, and it's not that Shauna is guilty in the sense that her kinks are wrong or bad, but what is important to remember about any of these behaviors and where they become problematic is the matter of consent. Shauna and Adam had a level of consent. They were in a mutually consenting sexual relationship and had some spicy experiences together, experimenting with BDSM. But we've also seen Shauna assault her other lovers, such as Melissa, because shooting her as a teenager was non-consensual, and breaking into her house and mutilating her as an adult was also non-consensual. What they did together to Coach Ben was non-consensual. We don't have all the information on how the sleepovers with Shauna and Jackie went, but there are suspicions that certain things went on in the meat shed, which would be considered non-consensual, and checks a very specific box on Shauna's list of paraphilic behaviors. And finally, it should be mentioned that in the original outline, Shauna had a weird incestuous storyline going on with Callie, where, aside from the scene in her room in the pilot episode, Shauna also apparently stole a pair of Callie's undies to wear on a date with Adam. Melanie Linsky told the writers that she just didn't really feel like that would work for her character for many reasons, and the scene was cut. But it is interesting that there are so many examples of Shauna displaying risque behavior in the original version of the story. So we can see why Shauna would be so hesitant to open up about her fantasies to Jeff. They are questionable on the best of days, and it probably terrifies her to imagine how Jeff might react to his wife's innermost desires.
My favorite thoughts are Jack's. The slumber party makeouts, the jealousy, the betrayal.
There is no doubt that Shauna is an extreme person, and that stretches into her sexual desires. When it comes to defining her sexuality, it really is a subjective question because at different points and under varying circumstances, her decision is made. Shauna most definitely has a domineering personality, and she brings that to her relationships, which seems to be a way for her to feel in control of whatever happens. Shauna had strong feelings for Jackie, but those feelings were not concretely reciprocated. Though she and Jackie experimented together, Jackie still had a boyfriend and viewed Shauna as her best friend. Clearly, Shauna desired more from Jackie, but couldn't articulate her feelings or desires. That left her feeling out of control, and after the plane crash, she felt even more powerless. When Jackie died after fighting with Shauna, and the baby soon after that, Shauna had to find a way to take her power back, or lose all hope entirely. This is where a new side of Shauna appears, a stronger and dominant side of her, where her strength was armor to prevent those powerless feelings from overtaking her. I think this is why Shauna enjoys the dominance and submission roles in her sexual life. She feels in control of these risky situations she puts herself in. The thrill she gets from her affair or from hunting down Melissa gives her the same adrenaline rush as surviving in the wilderness, and the closest she can get to reliving those emotions while maintaining control over the situation. Shauna progressively ups the risk factor as each season progresses, until the people around her all realize that she is the problem. She creates problems for all of them, just like Melissa said, because she hates herself. And a lot of that hate goes back to her feelings for Jackie and feeling responsible for her death. She loved Jackie in a way that no one else has been able to live up to, but she also hated her for making her feel like she wasn't good enough. Jackie is dead, and Shauna has to live with all those unresolved feelings, which have tortured her inside for years. So, when it comes to the question of Shauna's orientation, I think the answer is subjective, but the true answer is that Shauna loved Jackie more than anyone else in her life, and no one else will ever live up to that love. However, Shauna also feels like she failed Jackie, and because those feelings are unresolved, she doesn't feel like she's good enough to love anyone else. She doesn't feel like she deserves it. Shauna views Jeff as guilty of the same failures, and this is why he is the only person she feels she's good enough for, or is good enough for her. Shauna has a sort of arrested development, and Jeff was present for that moment, that snapshot in time, so Shauna finds solace in him and the only connection she has left to Jackie. He's just as guilty as Shauna for their shared crime against Jackie. I think Shauna kind of views their relationship as two wrongs making a right, if they can make it work. So, if you guys want a solid answer, I did run a poll on the channel a couple of weeks ago, and the consensus was overwhelmingly that Shauna is bisexual, which makes the most sense because we have seen her in relationships with both men and women. I'm inclined to agree with that vote, but in the end, I think Shauna's orientation is Jackie. I think she's all in for Jackie. That was her true love and best friend. Though many try, no one will ever live up to those feelings, and anyone else is just a practice in domination, so she'll never end up feeling as powerless as she did when she lost Jackie. But with the odds stacked against Shauna, and as I mentioned, Melissa being as much of a freak as her former lover, I actually think the two of them may pair up in season 4. While Shauna does have a sort of Black Widow praying mantis effect on her male victims, biting Melissa seemed more of a reminder of their former arrangement and her former loyalties to the Antler Queen. With Ty and Misty teaming up against Shauna, will Melissa return as consort and royal protector of the Queen in the next season? But those are just my thoughts, so let me know yours in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Jackie. Not the knife!
Do you think Mel has to wear Jackie's clothes when they make out?
She definitely makes Mel call her shipman.